Hey, it's Brooklyn Lou the Skeptic. I wanted to just touch on the sovereignty of God today because it's a very important theological concept in Christianity. Right? Christians believe that God is sovereign, so he is in control of all things. Okay, he is the one who sits on the throne. He is the one who is literally knows every little hair on your head, and he loves you. Okay, so the sovereignty of God is critical. I mean, what would your theology be if you had no God who was in control? But you do. You've created a theology where God is in control of all things. Now, when I was a Christian, I often would see people going through hard times, things that were happening that weren't pleasant, okay? And Christians and ministers would come alongside that person and tell them, well, it's okay because God is still on the throne. God is still in control. So no matter what happened, that he allowed to happen anyway, and even how bad it was for you, take comfort in knowing he is still in control. Okay? Now, first thing, if he lets something so horrible happen, all right, why am I supposed to be comfortable knowing that he is the one in control? Because I don't know what he's going to do next if he's in control. All right, now, the sovereignty of God includes things like natural disasters. Okay? Obviously, God is the only one who controls the weather according to Christian theology, right? Right? And yet we see earthquakes destroying areas. We see tornadoes whipping through areas. And the fact is, according to Christian theology, there's a person who is making that happen. And that person is your God. He's personal to you. It's Jesus making that happen. Okay? It's the Father making that happen. All right? So don't blame human beings, all right, because the human beings are not ultimately in control. There's a God above all, and that God is a person. And like we say in the real world, the buck stops here. The buck stops with the God. He is the one who is in control. Okay, so I can't stand seeing all the excuses made for the God. Something bad happens? Well, wasn't the God who did that. Okay. Right? Must have been a bad person who did that. Right? Come on, get a grip on reality. Your God is supposed to control all things. He's the boss. He's the manager of the universe. He's the one who makes things happen. Okay? Now, if God is in control of all things, right? I looked up a couple of statistics, and they're not friendly, but I just want you to at least think about them. All right? One is in America, 10 to 20% of all pregnancies end in miscarriage. 20%. 10 to 20%. It's not an exact number, but it's a lot. Okay? So the one who is in charge of all things decided that 10 to 20% of babies would simply miscarriage. Many of them to Christian mothers and fathers who are praying and hoping and praying to the God to please allow their child to come into the earth because they want to love that child. And yet there's someone sovereign who decides that 10 to 20% of those pregnancies must end in miscarriage. Just horrible. Okay? Just horrible. Right? In 2020, stats show that 5 million children died under the age of 5. 5 million children in the year 2020 alone. Now, don't get cute and say it's because Adam and Eve sinned. Let's be real. You have a God who you think is a person, who is the one who is in control of all these things. Okay? And he allowed these things to happen as he watched and did nothing. Now, I know you as a good person, being a Christian good person, you probably would have done something to help those parents and to help that child be born. If you could, of course you would do that. Any loving person would do that. Anyone with empathy would do that. But your God didn't. And your God is the one in control. The buck stops with him. All right? And 7 million people died from COVID-19 thus far. 7 million people. Many of them are your friends. Many of them were your family. 7 million people of a disease, of a virus. Okay? That virus is under the control of your God. Right? He is the one who controls the virus, according to you. Okay? So at least put the blame where the blame belongs. All right? But in your twisted mind, you're going to twist it around. Because you're going to say, oh, no, the God isn't responsible for that. The one who controls all things and is sovereign. Oh, no, we can't talk about what he did. All right? It was Adam and Eve. It was me, because that day that I said a curse word, he didn't like me. And because of that, my uncle died. Come on. Get a grip. Okay? You have a person that is supposed to be in control of all things. He's supposed to be managing the entire universe. And if he is, he's doing an awful job. Because if he was a person, right, he'd be thrown out on his almighty behind. We would throw him out. He's not managing the universe correctly. He's horrendous. Right? Just open your eyes. I mean, if you went to a doctor to get a gallbladder surgery, right, and the doctor who you're trusting to take care of you properly, he screws up the entire surgery, okay? He messes you up. You come out of the surgery and you have all types of problems, maybe sepsis, right? And you know who's responsible. It was the one in control of the operation. It was the doctor. You don't just go to the doctor and you say, well, I guess it was because I did something wrong. Right? And you know darn well that you would hold the doctor accountable. You wouldn't go, well, he's the doctor. He could never do anything wrong, because I already said in my mind that he was the greatest of all doctors. In fact, he was the doctor of doctors. You would never do that, because in the real world, we know that tragedies happen. We know many of them are preventable. And we know in Christian theology that the God is the one who is in control. He is the one who can change things. You see, in my understanding, there is no God. Okay? Things happen because people are flawed. Things happen because nature is real. Things happen because there is randomness. Things happen I do not understand. I don't have to understand. Okay? I can accept reality for what it is, and I can live comfortably. But Christians, stop making excuses for the God. Stop it already.